makes reading, holding a book, or turning a page difficult or impossible. The content is copyrighted by the respective publishers. For more information, please visit us on the web at nfradioreading.org.
Hello, this is Erin, and for the next hour, I'll be reading from the May 31st, 2026 issue of the front section of the New York Times and the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. First article, Without Much to Hold It Back, Ebola Devastates Mining Town, by Declan Walsh. In the cramped, dilapidated Ebola ward, a 5-year-old boy languished on a bare mattress, a tissue stuffed into his nose to stanch the incessant bleeding. His father stood over him, eyes clouded with worry. A few beds away lay the body of Christine Bahati, 21, who had died 7 hours earlier, but had not yet been taken away. Her shoes were still tucked under the bed. Her wailing relatives gathered outside the ward doors. The body, covered by a thin sheet, was highly contagious, yet hardly anyone in the ward was protected. Relatives came and went, carrying food and water to ailing patients because the hospital had none to give. A few wore rubber gloves or pulled a scarf across their mouths. Most had nothing at all. In the next ward lay the hospital's laboratory technician, also sick. 7 other people, hospital workers, had already died from suspected Ebola. Few of the staff members had ever been trained to fight the disease, and the most rudimentary equipment was in dangerously short supply: tests, protective suits, goggles, masks, even drinking water. Outside, the sound of hammering broke the hushed silence. Aid workers from Doctors Without Borders were racing to erect isolation tents and disinfection stations. Dr. Alex Bogle, a Congolese doctor in the hospital's intensive care ward, was furious. The virus has been spreading for months, virtually unimpeded, and this is the best we can do, he said, the frustration pouring through his protective gear. This is the epicenter of the Ebola outbreak in the Democratic Republic of Congo, and the front line is completely overwhelmed. The Congolese Health Ministry declared the outbreak on May 15th, and it has already ballooned into the 3rd largest on record. 2 weeks later, the international response is being outpaced by the virus, and there is almost nothing to slow it down. Aid groups warn that without urgent intervention, this could be the world's deadliest Ebola outbreak ever. Dr. Bogle was never trained for this and was angry at the Congolese government for failing to protect the outbreak until perhaps 6 weeks after it began, and at the world, which has barely mobilized help here in Mangwalu, a remote gold mining town of about 150,000 people, where the outbreak is believed to have started. They hold meetings and meetings, he said, struggling to contain his disdain. What is the purpose of these meetings? People are dying. People are getting infected. People are in danger. It's very slow. I arrived here with Arlette Bashizi, a photographer for the New York Times, after taking a bumpy 3-hour journey from the regional capital, Bunia, on what has become the Ebola Highway, a rutted dirt road that began spreading the disease long before anyone detected it. Giant trucks curling through lush hills leave blinding clouds of dust. Edgy-looking Congolese soldiers guard checkpoints that are often little more than string. Gold miners and people fleeing rebel conflict stream in and out of Mangwalu, providing an excellent vector for the spread of the virus. Through April and into early May, doctors in Mangwalu found themselves fighting a mysterious disease that was taking dozens of lives in the town. It turned out to be a virus that causes Ebola. There is no approved vaccine or treatment. As of Thursday, at least 1,077 suspected cases and 246 suspected deaths had been recorded in this outbreak, according to the Africa Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. More than 400 of those cases are in Mangwalu, a town in the heart of gold country and surrounded by rebel-held territory here in northeastern Congo. Ebola has swamped this hospital's meager capacities. Test kits for these species of disease are very hard to come by, and there is no triage station, so arriving patients who do not have Ebola risk being infected by those who do. In fact, it is hard to know who has Ebola because test results from the regional capital, 50 miles away, take 4 days or more to arrive, said the hospital director, Dr. Richard Lokudu. By then, many patients have already died. I've been telling people we need results immediately, Dr. Lokudu said. Wailing drifted into his office. Several times a day, news of the death of an Ebola patient sets off explosions of grief, he said. Relatives screamed and rolled around on the grass. Looking into his notebook, Dr. Lokudu produced a tally. At least 30 patients have died at the hospital over the previous 12 days. Many more had died in their homes across town. Beyond the hospital gates, residents were gripped by fear and confusion, he said. Mangwalu had not been touched by the last Ebola outbreak in Ituri, which began in 2018 and did not end until 2020. Now, faced with the sudden surge of deaths, many refused to accept that the virus was real and focused their ire on the hospital, Mangwalu General, which has 135 beds. Some said the outbreak was a money-making plot concocted by Congolese doctors and foreign aid workers. Others called it a curse. Often, doctors say the early symptoms of Ebola resemble other ailments like malaria or typhoid. So by the time patients go to the hospital, many are already very sick and die quickly, heightening suspicion and distrust. An angry crowd gathered outside the hospital's front gate, where armed soldiers stood guard. Killers, people shouted at us when we arrived, confusing us for foreign aid workers. 2 nights earlier, assailants had burned down an isolation ward in the hospital shortly after Doctors Without Borders put it up. In the chaos, 18 patients suspected of having Ebola fled their beds and vanished into the town, potentially spreading the virus even more. A 4-wheel drive vehicle with a smashed window was parked outside Dr. Lokudu's office. A day earlier, angry residents had chased him through the hospital grounds, flinging rocks, he said. We are in a really terrible crisis, he said. We're here to save them, he added. They think that we want to kill them. Other factors help explain why Mangwalu is the center of the outbreak. Fruit bats, which scientists believe are a natural reservoir for the virus, roost in huge numbers in trees on the edge of the town, introducing the risk of transmission. Gold mining and conflict mean that a diverse stream of people is constantly flowing through the town. Miners seeking an income come here from other provinces or even across borders, then return home. The gold business brings traders, prostitutes, and smugglers. Before the outbreak, the city was a haven in a volatile region where ethnic conflicts have raged for decades. Displaced people flock to Mangwalu from the surrounding countryside seeking safety, but they also go back perhaps now with the virus. It's a perfect storm, said Dr. Esther Sturck, a tropical medicine advisor with Doctors Without Borders, who arrived in Mangwalu this week. Dr. Lokudu, the hospital director, believes he may have treated one of the outbreak's first victims. On April 6, he said he operated on a young woman who had suffered a miscarriage during a late stage of her pregnancy. As he performed a C-section, he noticed unusual splotches of blood on her organs. 6 hours later, he said the woman died. In the weeks that followed, the medics who treated her fell sick. The anesthesiologist died on May 9th, Dr. Lokudu said. The surgical assistant died a day later. Dr. Lokudu said he also felt sick around the same time but survived. He is not sure how, though he noted that he had been vaccinated during the previous outbreak, albeit for a different species of Ebola. Perhaps that saved me, he said. Now his focus was on the crowd at the gate. There were followers of Silvestri Atama, a charismatic Catholic preacher who had died the day before, only hours after tests confirmed he had Ebola. His anguished supporters converged on the hospital, demanding his body to hold his funeral. Dr. Lokudu refused. Traditional burial processes involving touching the body, Dr. Lokudu feared an unmanaged funeral could turn into a superspreader event, passing the disease to even more people. The crowd attacked Dr. Lokudu, hitting his car with stones. Although soldiers were now positioned at the gate, the threats continued. They absolutely want the body, he said. That night, as we settled into our hotel, gunshots rang out. A crowd of more than 100 men, some armed with machetes and sticks, attacked the hospital in an effort to spring the preacher's body. The police and soldiers fired warning shots to repel them, witnesses said. The battle went on for 5 hours, the police chief told me. In the chaos, yet more Ebola patients left their beds and ran for safety, potentially taking the virus home to their loved ones. The next morning, after careful negotiations, a line of soldiers accompanied Mr. Atama's body as it wound through the town for a safe burial beside the Catholic Church. Experts at the WHO say that a vaccine against this species of Ebola could take 6 or 9 months to develop. Until then, we must make do with what we have, Dr. Lakuta said. Otherwise, who will do it? The doors of the Ebola ward swung open. A Red Cross worker emerged wearing the same kind of protective suit we had put on to enter the hospital wards. Spraying disinfectant in his path, he was followed by volunteers carrying a sealed white bag. It contained the remains of Miss Bahati, the 21-year-old whose body had lain there for many hours after she had died. Mourners grieved as the body bag was placed in a casket, wailing and beating themselves. "Show us her body," one cried out. Her husband watched from a distance. He still had not told their boys, aged 2 and 3, that their mother was gone. How would they understand, he said. He impatiently rejected the conspiracy theories that were circulating in the streets to explain the scourge. He had the ultimate, most painful proof. In my opinion, he said firmly, Ebola exists. The door to the Ebola ward closed again, but there was also glimmers of hope. The ailing 5-year-old boy, Emmanuel Cyril, fought on. Only days earlier, he had been to school until the teacher sent him home when he became feverish. Soon he began to bleed. By Friday afternoon, his father sent a message to say that Emmanuel was sitting up, asking for toys. The bleeding had stopped. Emmanuel hoped to go home soon, he said. The next article, U.S. help is conditional, Hegseth tells Asia Forum by Damian Cave and Chris Buckley. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth told Asia's military leaders on Saturday that America would put its most committed partners at the front of the line for U.S. support, suggesting that countries must vie for American attention, even as many look for more help to counter an emboldened China. In a region already concerned that America may be too focused elsewhere and providing too many concessions to China, Mr. Hegseth offered assurance that the United States would stay proactive and protective, but also warned that American help would be conditional. President Trump believes in helping countries that help themselves, Mr. Hegseth said, speaking to the Shangri-La Dialogue, an annual security forum in Singapore, adding, "The era of the United States subsidizing the defense of wealthy nations is over." Mr. Hegseth repeatedly defined the U.S. approach as strong, quiet, and clear. On the most contentious issues facing the region, he was almost entirely silent. In his prepared remarks, Mr. Hegseth omitted any mention of Taiwan, which is anxiously waiting for clarity on U.S. weapons sales as it contends with China's expanding military strength. He leavened his description of China as a rival or threat with milder language, and after failing to address the impact of the war in Iran, including an energy shortage that has devastated many Asian nations, he said in response to a question that conflicts in the Middle East should be decoupled from discussion of Taiwan. Big stick speaks softly, Mr. Hegseth said, summarizing the American approach. We will prioritize lethal capabilities, strategic discipline, and business-like cooperation over empty rhetoric and peacocking. It was Mr. Hegseth's second appearance at the forum. His speech in an ice-cold hotel ballroom, especially with its omission of any mention of Taiwan, represented a break from his more heated comments last year. In 2025, he told the Assembly of Asian Military Leaders that China's military harass Taiwan. The threat China poses is real, Mr. Hegseth said at the time, warning that any attempt by Communist China to conquer Taiwan by force would result in devastating consequences for the Indo-Pacific and the world. He mentioned Taiwan, an island democracy China claims, as lost territory 5 times in that speech. This year, he praised a list of partners, including South Korea, Japan, Australia, and Vietnam, for expanding their military capabilities and embracing collective defense. Taiwan, which recently raised military spending to more than 3% of its gross domestic product, was not mentioned. Senator Tammy Duckworth, an Illinois Democrat and veteran of the Iraq War, said the speech would intensify concerns in the region, fueling worries that a recent summit between President Trump and Xi Jinping, China's top leader, ended with too many American concessions, including a new willingness to let Taiwan's defense deals be negotiated in leader discussions. I am concerned that it seems like our president is entering into policies where he's doing what Beijing wants us to do, Senator Duckworth said after Mr. Hegseth's speech. while maintaining that there is bipartisan support for further weapons sales to Taiwan, including a possible $14 billion package that is waiting for a decision from the White House. Senator Ducksworth criticized Mr. Hegseth's speak softly approach. He talks about being cool and being quiet. I think it's actually for no top-level interest other than cozying up to the PRC, she said, referring to the People's Republic of China. Mr. Hegseth suggested that the relationship with China has shifted in a positive direction. He praised Mr. Trump for meeting with Mr. Xi and establishing military-to-military discussions. Under President Trump's leadership, relations between the United States and China are better than they have been in many years, Mr. Hegseth said. Dai Wei, a professor of international relations at the university, said the speech builds on the intent established by the two leaders at their meeting in Beijing and could carry momentum into upcoming meetings. I can feel a sense of relief from the region, seeing the two elephants developing a stable bilateral relation, he said. Taiwan, however, remains a primary concern for many countries. The island has for decades relied on U.S. military and political support to counter pressure from China, which has said it could take Taiwan by armed force. Mr. Trump created a ripple of uncertainty about his stance on Taiwan this month. In comments to reporters, Mr. Trump said that he and Mr. Xi had discussed America's possible arms sales to Taiwan in great detail, and he called them a bargaining chip with Beijing, potentially breaking with the U.S. commitment not to consult with China on weapons sales to Taiwan. Answering a question from the audience in Singapore, Mr. Hegseth rejected reports that Washington had paused a $14 billion arms sale to Taiwan because of the demands of the Iran war. When asked about Taiwan and arms sales at a Senate committee hearing this month, the acting U.S. Navy Secretary Hung Kao said, "We're doing a pause in order to make sure we have the munitions we need." But Mr. Hegseth denied there was a link between the fate of the proposed $14 billion arms package and the war in Iran. Hung Kao is fantastic, but I would not couple the two in any way at all. He said any decision about future Taiwan arms sales, as the president said, will rest with him. It is far from clear that such comments calm the nerves of those who worry that China could be emboldened by the softer American tone. Washington's push for other countries to build their own defenses is also sometimes interpreted as the prelude to a deeper U.S. retreat. A senior fellow at the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace said Mr. Hegseth's comments missed the core demand for allies at the moment, which is clarity on where the software and hardware of their alliances with the United States can meaningfully expand. The administration's approach to diffusing tensions with China still faces many obstacles, above all the gulf of distrust between the militaries of China and the United States. Incidents of aircraft and ships from the People's Liberation Army of China moving dangerously close to American military aircraft and ships in the skies and seas off China have declined since 2024 after complaints from Washington, but Chinese forces have continued to buzz and harass the planes and ships of U.S. allies, such as Japan and Australia. The United States' efforts to step up its military presence across Asia by deploying more missiles to Japan and the Philippines have also drawn sharp warnings from Beijing. Eli Ratner, who was the Assistant Secretary of Defense for Indonesia Pacific Security Affairs during the Biden administration, said that pattern might continue for now. Trump's accommodation of China may yield more military engagement in the near term, but it will also invite greater PLA coercion against U.S. allies, he said, referring to the Chinese military. That's not a recipe for strategic stability. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the front section of the New York Times on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The next article, they can't get enough of the rat race. In Barn Hunt, dogs follow their noses to glory, by Alexandra Petrie. Dakota, a 3.5-year-old Australian Shepherd mix, bounced into the ring, her tail wagging. She poked her nose into a prickly little straw bed and raced over a tall pile of rough bales. Then, darting toward a back corner, she began shredding the straw with her paws. "Rat, Jocelyn Chang," her handler called out, raising her hand. Dakota had found her first rodent in just under 40 seconds. "Good girl, Miss Chang," 43 cheered. She reached into the straw and fished out an aerated metal tube containing a white, gray rat with buck teeth and a long tail. "Go find more," Miss Chang said as the tube was safely removed from the ring. There were fewer than 4 minutes left, and possibly 4 more rats find. This is a barn hunt, a sport where dogs use their natural instincts to find live vermin safely tucked inside ventilated tubes that are hidden among hay and straw bales. Dogs of all breeds and sizes and their handlers compete in a range of levels or classes that vary in difficulty. Dogs and their handlers, who never know where the tubes are hidden, work together to find all of the rats in a run. Empty tubes and tubes with used rat litter inside are hidden in the hay as an added challenge. In dog sports like obedience or agility, handlers are in charge, but in barn hunt, the dog is the team captain, said Robin Nuttall, who started the barn hunt in 2012 to prove that her miniature pinscher, Zipper, could root out vermin as she had been bred to do. The dog has the nose, the handler does not, Miss Nuttall, 66, said. On a recent weekend, about 125 people and over 150 dogs competed in the 2026 Northeast Barn Hunt Regional at the Butler Farm Showgrounds in Butler, Pennsylvania, hoping to earn a spot at the national competition in Springfield, Missouri in October. Handlers wore custom apparel showing their dogs' dopey smiling faces and team names like Fluff and Duff. Bumper stickers laminated that there were so many rats, so little time. At least one handler wore rat earrings. Rats are the unsung heroes of barn hunt. About 40 rats, the sport uses only domestic pet rats, were rotated in and out of the rings throughout the tournament, cared for by rat wranglers who ensure the rats are getting the rest and pampering they deserve. 4 classes were held over the weekend, and competitors accumulated points over time. During a master run in which a dog has 4.5 minutes to find up to 5 live rats, Serge, an American Pit Bull Terrier, ping-ponged through the ring, dived into a pile of straw, and let out a series of cries and barks, signaling to their handler, Lindsay Boyer, that she had found a rat. Then Serge zipped through a tunnel and pranced around the ring. Miss Boyer, reading her dog's body language, declared the course clear of rats. Barn Hunt has given Serge, who was found abandoned and tied to a tree in chest-deep waters in South Carolina during Hurricane Dorian in 2019, confidence and purpose, and Miss Boyer too. It's about working as a team, getting to learn about your dog, and trust. Just building the bond, said Miss Boyer, 33, who adopted Serge in 2023. But dogs will be dogs, even at the highest levels of barn hunt. A Bracco Italiano named Tipsy and a Doberman named Maze were more interested in playing with each other than finding rats. Luther, a golden retriever, strutted around the ring with a pool noodle he had knocked off the top of the tunnel clenched in his teeth. Dakota, the shepherd mix, got a case of the zoomies during one of her runs, and plenty of dogs emptied their bladders in the rings, prompting some cleanup and straw removal. As seriously as the handlers and some of the dogs take the competition, the tournament at times seemed to take a backseat to the spirit of camaraderie that flourished outside the ring. It felt like people were there more for the community, said Sierra Archer, 25, who was competing in her first barn hunt regional with Sitka, a 5-year-old border collie shepherd mix. They loved cheering for each other and celebrating each other's wins. Ribbons were awarded as prizes, though for the dogs, the real reward was the heaps of praise they received after finding a rat and the peanut butter, beef or lamb jerky, or the dehydrated chicken feet waiting for them after runs. Laura Garcia, whose 7-year-old Cardigan Welsh Corgi, Garth, is a slow, methodical hunter, took home 4 ribbons this year. I'm not in it for the titles, Miss Garcia, 55, said. I'm in it just to have fun with him. Like everyone said, she added through tears, you only have so much time with your best friend. The next article is Blue Origin Had Momentum Before the Fireball by Karen Weiss. For years, Jeff Bezos' Blue Origin rocket company operated in secrecy, overshadowed by the success of Elon Musk's SpaceX. But in the past year, it was gaining momentum, getting closer to reliably launching a gigantic rocket called New Glenn. It was supposed to give the entire space industry much needed capacity to lift satellites and other equipment into space. NASA gave the rocket a vote of confidence last week, with a bigger role in the agency's Artemis return to the moon program, and Amazon had 48 of its satellites ready to hitch a ride into orbit in its race to compete with SpaceX's Starlink internet service. Then, around 9 p.m. on Thursday, New Glenn erupted into a fireball on its launch pad during a test. This is a big collective gasp and setback, said Chad Anderson, a startup investor at the venture capital firm Space Capital. The delays from the explosion will hit Blue Origin and its customers, including Amazon and NASA, just as SpaceX is nearing a much-hyped initial public offering that could value the company at more than $1.25 trillion. Had the rocket exploded in the air, the failure could have been almost routine, but the explosion badly damaged the launch pad. At least one massive steel tower appeared to be essentially gone, and there are questions about the state of the tangle of hydraulics and fueling systems that run below the concrete pad and through the area. Blue Origin did not return a request for comment. In a social media post on Thursday evening, it called the blowup an anomaly and said all personnel were safe. Amazon did not have an immediate comment. New Glenn has only launched the Launch Complex 36 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida. Blue Origin spent several years and more than $1 billion to rebuild the 1960s era launch site. That means Blue Origin not only needs to figure out what went wrong and how to fix it, but also has to rebuild the launch infrastructure, creating the potential for major delays before the company can start testing New Glenn again. The delays will affect Blue Origin when it was otherwise hitting its stride, said Carissa Christensen, chief executive of Bryce Tech, a space analytics and engineering firm. I don't think it's game-ending or even game-changing, but it is disappointing, she said. Industry watchers say Mr. Bezos will stick with his ambitions. He is worth more than $290 billion, and he views Blue Origin as a cornerstone of his legacy. Blue Origin's resources are limited only by his appetite to spend. Very rough day, but we'll rebuild whatever needs rebuilding and get back to flying, he wrote on social media on Thursday night. It's worth it. Delays with the Blue Origin further box Amazon into a corner as it looks to begin commercial operations of its satellite constellation, Amazon Leo, which aims to compete with Starlink. Amazon built its launch strategy to rely largely on next generation of rockets that can haul dozens of satellites into space at once. New Glenn, for example, can hold 48 of Amazon's satellites. The rockets that have ferried the Leo satellites into orbit so far can hold 24 to 32 each. Amazon is falling victim to crises of launch capacity in the industry that the New Glenn explosion will make worse, according to Quality Space, a research firm. The entire space economy has to squeeze through the same gate, said Kim Burke, director of government affairs of Quality Space. So when a rocket fails, no matter what team you are rooting for, we all take the hit. A third of almost 3,500 remaining satellites the Amazon has contracted to launch were set to ride on New Glenn, according to Quality Space's analysis. Even more slated for the new Vulcan Center rocket from United Launch Alliance, a joint venture of Boeing and Lockheed Martin, which is also working to resolve an issue with its solid rocket boosters. If the issue with New Glenn ends up being Blue Origin's engines, the Vulcan Center launch vehicle could be further risked too. Because its rockets use the same engines, Amazon Leo was making headway and playing catch-up to Starlink. After a year of launches, it had more than 300 satellites in orbit. Starlink has more than 10,000, according to a tracker run by astrophysicist Jonathan McDowell. Amazon satellites were ferried by smaller rockets from SpaceX, the United Launch Alliance, and Ariane Space, a company based in France. It had signed major customers, including Delta Airlines, and made a deal with Apple to power satellite services for iPhones and Apple Watches. When we launch that service commercially, it will be one of two offerings that are the current technology edge, Andy Jassy, Amazon's chief executive, said last month. Amazon has 3 launches scheduled on the smaller rockets in the coming weeks, including one slated for as early as Friday evening. It said Amazon Leo was still on track to begin commercial services in the fall, letting the company finally bank revenue against the billions it has spent rebuilding the network. But New Glenn's delays could affect how fast it can grow from there. It removes the acceleration and backup just as Amazon needs it, Mr. Anderson said. Next article, How Does Kennedy Rate as a Wrangler of Snakes? By Neil Vigdor. Robert F. Kennedy Jr., as Health Secretary, has offered Americans a multitude of warnings about things they should avoid in the name of self-preservation. but handling snakes does not appear to be one of them. While visiting the West Palm Beach, Florida home of Dr. Mehmet Oz, the administrator for the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, Mr. Kennedy wrangled 2 non-venomous black racer snakes with his bare hands from a patio in his dress shirt, slacks, and tie, according to a video he posted online on Tuesday. The video racked up nearly 8 million views in about 8 hours on X, the latest in a string of eyebrow-raising encounters between Mr. Kennedy and members of the animal kingdom as varied as rattlesnakes, ravens, a dead bear, and a whale carcass. How do snake wranglers grade his technique? In the video, Mr. Kennedy cornered the 2 snakes from a crouching position and grabbed them near their tails. The snakes, which experts said appeared to be mating, nipped at his hands as they tried to escape from the grip of Mr. Kennedy, who was wearing socks. Experts also said it would be better to call in professionals in such a situation. Bruce Ireland, 60, a snake wrangler from the San Diego area with more than 500,000 Instagram followers, said it was clear Mr. Kennedy could distinguish non-venomous snakes from poisonous ones. If it were me, I would bend at the knees a little more, try to get a little lower to the ground, said Mr. Ireland, who gave Mr. Kennedy a 9.6 out of 10. He got them both, and he did it in a way that the snakes appear not to be injured, he said. Really, the only way to do it is go in like a bowl of spaghetti and just hope you get them both up. Sarah Ruane, 44, who is associate curator of herpetology at the Field Museum of Chicago and has been handling snakes much of her life, said the video helped destigmatize snakes as needing to be eliminated. I commend anybody who handles or catches a snake. That does not include bashing it on the head with a shovel, Dr. Ruane said. I am very pleased to see somebody not having a major panic attack. But the snakes in the video appeared to become agitated when Mr. Kennedy grabbed for their tails, according to Dr. Ruane, who said it is important to try to support their full bodies as much as possible to avoid injuring them. I don't know what I'd say. It's the best snake wrangling I've ever seen, but it is far from the worst, she said. Mr. Ireland noted another thing about the health secretary's technique. The impressive thing was his shirt stayed tucked in. If that was me, man, I'd be plumber cracking all over the place. A spokesman for the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services did not immediately respond to questions on Tuesday about the video, which Mr. Kennedy posted to his personal social media account. Is it safe to handle snakes? Mr. Ireland, who removes and relocates snakes from people's properties free of charge, said the vast majority of people who are bitten by snakes in the United States had tried moving or harming them. So my advice to anybody typically is going to be just leave them alone, he said. Knowing whether a snake is poisonous or not is critical before engaging one. According to Mr. Ireland, who said he uses special tools, including snake tongs and a hook, to guide venomous snakes out of harm's way and into a bucket. On Tuesday, several people sent him the video of Mr. Kennedy, who in previous videos online has handled rattlesnakes. I've seen people do similar things and they're picking up a venomous snake and it makes me cringe, he said. Dr. Ruane suggested calling Fish and Wildlife officers to be safe. Do black racers bite? In this video, Mr. Kennedy was asked what kind of snakes he was holding and responded. His wife, the actress Cheryl Hines, appeared to have misheard, exclaiming, "Moccasins? Those are dangerous." Mr. Kennedy, sounding bemused, said they were not. Black racers are widely found in Florida and are distinct from water moccasins, snake experts said. These snakes look about as much like water moccasins as I look like Brad Pitt, Mr. Ireland said. A bite from a water moccasin can land a person in intensive care, but a black racer's bite is more like a prick, he said. If they did, it would hurt his feelings more than it would hurt him, Mr. Ireland said. Dr. Ruane noted that it can still be tricky to hold the snake properly and avoid being bitten. You know that can happen to the best of us, she said. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the front section of the New York Times on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Doctor issues upbeat report on Trump's health by Chris Cameron. The White House released a 3-page report from President Trump's physician late Friday detailing the results of his physical exam at Walter Reed National Military Medical Center last week. Mr. Trump's doctors in the past have released positive health reports that stress the president's excellent condition and good health habits. Friday's report, written by the president's physician, gave a similarly upbeat assessment of Mr. Trump's health, declaring that the 79-year-old president remains in excellent health, demonstrating strong cardiac, pulmonary, neurological, and overall physical function. Mr. Trump, the oldest man to be inaugurated as president, underwent an extensive battery of physical and mental tests. According to the report, the president had an echocardiogram and ultrasound image of the heart, followed increased testing of his cardiovascular system last year, and a diagnosis of chronic venous insufficiency, a condition that occurs when veins have trouble moving blood back to the heart. Mr. Trump has a history of high cholesterol and takes 2 medications, Crestor and Zetia, to lower his LDL cholesterol levels. Mr. Trump also takes a high daily dose of aspirin to reduce the risk of heart attacks and strokes, rejecting medical guidelines and advice from his doctors to switch to a lower amount. At Walter Reed, Mr. Trump also took a series of neurological tests, including the Montreal Cognitive Assessment, or MOCA, a 10-minute exam meant to screen for signs of dementia, Alzheimer's, or other conditions. As in previous years, Mr. Trump scored 30 out of 30 on the exam. The report showed that the president has gained 14 pounds since a physical exam in April 2025, weighing 238, near the threshold of clinical obesity. Mr. Trump, who has often mused publicly about friends and staff who take what he calls the fat drug, has said that he has not taken obesity drugs, adding, "I probably should." Dr. Barbella noted in the report that preventative counseling was provided, including guidance on diet, recommendation to take a low-dose aspirin, increased physical activity, and continued weight loss. Mr. Trump, who will turn 80 on June 14th, has faced public scrutiny over his health with growing signs of fatigue and a lack of clarity from his doctors and aides on the details of the president's health. Mr. Trump has, for example, been seen with frequent visible bruises on his hands. When the bruises appeared on his right hand, White House officials said it was caused by his handshake, and Mr. Trump began masking the bruises with makeup. When a bruise then appeared on his left hand, Mr. Trump said it was because he had hit it on a table and was taking aspirin. Dr. Barbella, including both explanations in his report, saying that the bruises were a common and benign effect of aspirin therapy. Mr. Trump also has been observed with frequent swelling in his legs, which the president's doctors and aides have explained as a result of chronic venous insufficiency. Dr. Barbella's report on Friday said that the slight lower leg swelling was noted with improvement from last year. Mr. Trump's health report from last year made no mention of the leg swelling, saying that Mr. Trump's joints and muscles were having a full range of motion with normal blood flow and no swelling. The president was seen earlier this year with a neck rash, which Dr. Barbella had previously said was being treated for a very common medicated cream. Dr. Barbella did not say what the skin condition was or what medication Mr. Trump was taking, and the dermatology section of Friday's report made no mention of the rash. For more than a decade, Mr. Trump, his doctors, and his aides have frequently issued terse, vague, or rosy statements about the president's fitness and health conditions. Dr. Harold Bornstein, Mr. Trump's longtime personal physician, said in late 2015 that Mr. Trump would be the healthiest individual ever elected to presidency. Dr. Ronnie L. Jackson, a White House physician for Mr. Trump, said in 2018 that with a better diet, Mr. Trump could have lived to be 200 years old. Mr. Trump has often declined to explain when and why he has sought out medical care. For example, as Mr. Trump returned to the campaign trail ahead of the 2024 election, the doctor issued a vague, single-page health report that did not include even basic details, such as Mr. Trump's weight, his blood pressure, his cholesterol levels, or any prescription medication. Mr. Trump ultimately refused to release many of his basic health records before the election. Next article, A Week That Shook the NASCAR Community by Alex Andrujev, Jordan Bianchi, and Jeff Gluck. Days before the NASCAR driver Kyle Busch's death, he raced with his son at a go-kart track in North Carolina, engaged with fans, and maintained his typically competitive demeanor. The driver's apparent vigor earlier in the week, according to those who interacted with him, contributed to the widespread shock and devastation felt throughout the motorsports community when news broke on May 21st that Busch had died at age 41. The update came less than 8 hours after Busch's family and team announced he had been hospitalized with a severe illness, and less than a week after his last NASCAR race win. Last weekend, the Busch family announced that a medical evaluation concluded that severe pneumonia progressed into sepsis, resulting in rapid and overwhelming associated complications. A death certificate obtained by The Athletic on Wednesday revealed that Busch had bacterial pneumonia for days to weeks, which led to multiple other serious issues, including sepsis, before he died. Those who were around him earlier in the week of his death shared that he was smiling, interacting with others, and spending time with his 11-year-old son Bruxton while racing May 19th at the Andretti Indoor Karting Facility in Durham, North Carolina. The racing legend Mario Andretti said his grandson Marco invited Busch to the facility which was holding its grand opening. Andretti showed a video of himself shaking hands with Busch at the event and called the racer's death a shock of my life and unbelievable. His legacy will be there forever, Andretti said. The talent, what he's done with NASCAR, he is one of the golden boys of NASCAR for sure. What he has contributed is immense. Everybody knew Rowdy. He'll bring a smile when we talk about him. Naz Adura, an amateur racer and NASCAR fan who spent the afternoon at the facility, said he did not realize Busch, a two-time Cup Series champion and the driver with the most wins in NASCAR National Series history, with 234 across the Cup, O'Reilly, and Truck Series, would be at the event, but he noticed a driver without a helmet racing among a group of children. I was like, oh, it's Kyle Busch. Oh no, don't let those kids beat you now, Adura said. Those kids were impressive, he continued. They were literally wheeling those carts around and drifting around the corner, showing off their car control. And Kyle Busch was guiding them like a father figure, almost like a mother hen guiding the babies, just kind of teaching them things, pushing them to be better. Earlier in his career, Busch was widely seen as a polarizing figure and NASCAR villain for his brash manner on and off the track. In more recent years, however, he has spotlighted his role as a husband and father as well as racing coach for Brexton, who competes at the grassroots level. Their social media pages often features videos of the two together around the track. Busch raced in NASCAR events in the weeks leading up to his death. While dealing with an illness, he radioed to his team while competing at Watkins Glen International on May 10th, asking to meet after the race with Bill Heisel, a sports physician assistant who has long worked with NASCAR teams. I'm going to need a shot, Busch said on the radio. Copy, a voice responded. He'll be at your bus. Heisel did not respond to messages seeking comment. Busch won a Truck Series race at Dover Motor Speedway on May 15th. The Athletic asked him the next day whether he was feeling better. Busch, mentioning to his face, replied, "You can kind of hear it. I'm still not great, but the cough was pretty substantial last week." It is unclear when Busch's pneumonia became severe or what treatment he may have sought. Pneumonia is an infection that inflames the air sacs of the lungs, typically caused by bacteria or viruses, according to multiple doctors. Common pneumonia symptoms include coughing, difficulty breathing, chest pains, rapid heart rate, fever, and chills. Sepsis is a dysregulated immune response to any kind of infection, including pneumonia, that causes body-wide inflammation and can affect various organs. According to the death certificate for Busch, which listed a chain of events, the sepsis led to disseminated intravascular coagulation, which causes abnormal clotting throughout the body's blood vessels. That led to a hemorrhagic shock, which is caused by severe internal or external bleeding. The sepsis lasted 1 day, and the DIC and the hemorrhagic shock lasted hours, the death certificate said. On May 19th, Busch raced at the karting facility, and the next day he was photographed with fans at his team's race shop. By that evening, his health seemed to decline quickly, according to 911 audio obtained by The Athletic and other outlets requesting recordings related to Busch. An unidentified caller asked around 5:30 p.m. May 20th for an ambulance to be sent to a motorsport engineering facility in Concord, North Carolina. Busch was at the racing simulator at that facility that day, a source debriefed on the situation said. I've got an individual that's shortness of breath, very hot, thinks he's going to pass out, and he's producing a little bit of blood, coughing up some blood, the caller told the dispatcher. The caller also said the individual, whose name was redacted in the released audio, was awake and on a bathroom floor and asked that responders turn ambulance sirens off when arriving. Steve O'Donnell, the chief executive of NASCAR, said he received a call. You don't expect that things weren't great around 9 a.m. May 21st, he visited the hospital soon after. Around 10:30 a.m. that day, Busch's family shared an update that he was undergoing treatment and would not compete in events at Charlotte over the weekend. At that time, his Richard Childress racing team wished him a swift and safe recovery and said his number 8 Chevrolet would be ready and waiting for him. By that evening, NASCAR Busch's family and his team announced his death. Kyle was a rare talent, one who comes along once a generation, their joint statement said. He was fierce, he was passionate, he was immensely skilled, and he cared deeply about the sport and fans. 2 doctors, who were not involved with Busch's medical care, said pneumonia generally does not progress to severe illness requiring hospitalization, nor does it generally progress to sepsis and death, especially in healthy adults and adolescents when evaluated and treated early. This is a very uncommon situation, and I think that's what's been surprising and shocking for everyone, said Kenton Dover, a physician who specializes in pulmonary and critical care medicine at the UNC School of Medicine in Chapel Hill. We do on occasion see it happen like this, but it is again very uncommon. Casey Clements, an emergency medicine physician and sepsis researcher at the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota, also said the vast majority of cases involving patients who have pneumonia, bacterial or viral, are treatable and do not progress into sepsis. He said the dangerous signs for sepsis and severe lightheadedness, feeling like you're going to pass out, difficulty breathing, or any sort of altered mental status. Those need to be seen right away, he said. Throughout the Charlotte race weekend, tributes to Busch were omnipresent. Every Cup car carried a sticker, and drivers wore Kyle or Brexton Busch t-shirts during the pre-race ceremony. Many in the garage wore Kyle Busch hats. Each of the 3 race winners also performed Busch's signature victory bow. Last weekend, NASCAR allowed Busch's team to unload its car first, a symbolic gesture that took on a somber tone. Against a backdrop of gray sky and rain, Busch's image on a video board visible through the garage, the crew lowered the car as members representing nearly every team watched in eerie silence. Several of them wept. Last Sunday, a pre-race memorial service featured the first public appearance since Busch's death for his wife Samantha and their 2 children, Brexton and Lennox 4. The family, along with the Busch's parents and older brother Kurt, solemnly walked out onto pit road where drivers, many of their family members, team personnel, and NASCAR senior leadership had gathered to show their support. O'Donnell then spoke addressing Busch's death and pledging NASCAR support to the Busches. This was Kyle Busch's home. Every racetrack was Kyle Busch's home, O'Donnell said. He competed like he had something to prove every single race, when in reality he had already proven everything. What I think we'll miss the most isn't the wins. It's the guy who quietly wanted to help a teammate or give some advice. The husband, the father, or the guy who quietly did things for others when no one was watching. Samantha, I want you to know that this sport stands with you, and you and your children are NASCAR family forever. And Brexton and Lennox, your dad loves you with all his heart. Everyone gathered here, everyone behind you, everyone watching on TV, and all those people up in the grandstand, they are your family, and we've got you. Clips of Busch's highlights, wins, and quotations have also circulated online. In a video clip captured after Busch's last truck's victory at Dover 6 days before his death, he was asked why those moments never get old. Because you never know when your last one is, he said. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the front section of the New York Times on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Next article, an unfamiliar feeling descends on New York. Is that good cheer? By Matt Flegenheimer. For a few weeks now, strange things have been happening in New York City. Eye contact on the train is intentional, warm, knowing. Terriers in team sweaters, sniff terriers without team sweaters, suspiciously triple-checking their loyalties. Drivers honk with joy and not rage sometimes, as if flagging down old friends on some rock William Main Street, shouting through open windows its sidewalk splashes of orange and blue, the last melodic performance on Broadway, and the likeliest to move grown men to tears anyway. Next, strange things are happening in New York City because strange things happen to New York City when the Knicks are good. For decades, it has been easy to forget this, seeing as the Knicks have been mostly not good. So consistently and convincingly, life less than perma-despair seemed utterly normal. And because it has been so long since the Knicks were this good at the city's game, 27 years since they made the NBA Finals, 32 since they had an honest chance to win it at all, 53 since they actually did so, generations of basketball fans are learning and relearning core truths about themselves and their electric, maddening, merrily hypocritical, suddenly less cynical home. When the Knicks are good, the city shrinks deliriously into the biggest small town in the world. If small towns had to outlaw watch parties outside their own team's arena because the police feared the consequences of high-density delirium. When the Knicks are good, signs go up in the windows of the good bodegas and the bad bodegas and the cannabis shops and the 8-figure luxury apartments guarded by doormen, now convening discussion sessions about Karl Anthony Towns whenever anyone enters the lobby. When the Knicks are good, it is right and appropriate and cringeless to cluster outside Brooklyn bars singing New York, New York, an earnest anthem for emotionally vulnerable times, to know that Walt Frazier is still the most stylish man in these streets, to arrange for the family vehicle to be serviced at John Stark's Kia in Queens, named for the beloved 1990s not quite hero from the last time New York cared so much about all of this. When the Knicks are good, the city's flimsiest tropes crumble under scrutiny. New York is meant to be unflappable, inplaceable. Above it all, this New York is flapped highly placable, above nothing, with notable exception of every team the Knicks have played for a month and a half. They're going to need the National Guard, a man hollered, almost aspirationally, the night they made the finals, edging toward Madison Square Garden to join the Midtown masses in a spirit of light misdemeanor. Walking away lampposts that probably should have been greased to discourage exuberant climbers. The cheapest resale tickets for the next game in that building would soon be available for the preposterous, plausible price of more than $3,000 apiece. Of course, New York has many teams and many sports that stir many unruly passions. Fans of Rangers hockey are lunatics but have a smaller footprint in a city where a public park's netless hoop is something of an unofficial municipal logo. Baseball and football allegiances are split, Mets and Yankees, Jets and Giants, preventing even the most charmed playoff run from becoming a wholly unifying moment. There is also witnesses insist another NBA team that plays in Brooklyn, in the same arena where the Liberty won a WNBA title 2 years ago. But most New Yorkers have collectively agreed not to talk about the Nets, whose home games against their Manhattan rivals are generally more hospitable to, Knicks fans. Landry Shamet, the backup guard who has seemed to make every shot since April, said on TV after the conference-clinching win, are a specific species of human that should be studied. He had been conducting his own research that night in Cleveland, where thousands of invading specimens made a road arena sound like a 7th Avenue fever dream, where Spike Lee and Timothy Chalamet probably hurt their Q scores in Ohio by celebrating on another Knicks opponent's home floor. This has been an odd wrinkle of these playoffs, a fan base that is short on recent postseason memories, were savoring and long, in some cases, on disposable income for last-minute tickets and travel, just as New York is behaving perhaps a little more like anywhere else, submitting to a local pride befitting a high school football town. Its ambassadors are making anywhere else sound a little more like New York, to the extent that New Yorkers ever acknowledge those dots on the map in the first place. New York is the only city in the world, a Brooklyn councilman posted on X after the win in Cleveland. On Wednesday, the finals will start. The Knicks have done so much winning lately, so persuasively, that they have given their fans something even more disorienting than victory, sumptuous off days, leaving the surviving contenders to maul each other in some other city for the privilege of playing against this one, against this desperate history in front of these maniacs. Against its better judgment, New York is ready to wonder, ready to hurt again, and it is ready, so unspeakably ready, for something far stranger than that. Next article, his pitch in Greenland, join U.S., get $200,000, by Jeffrey Gettleman and Maya Tekeli. 3 weeks ago, police officers in Greenland's capital went on high alert after an older American man dressed in short black suit was spotted on the streets trying to get Greenlanders to sign up on a peculiar petition. He told people his name was Cliff. He said he was working for himself and had made an intriguing offer. If you agree to join the United States, he proposed you could each get $200,000. Who was he? In an interview and Nook Clifford E. Stanley, a retired mortgage broker from Las Vegas, explained his unusual mission to the New York Times. Why am I interested in Greenland? Because I am a broker, he said. So I came here to present this and see if there was any interest. He added, it's a sales job. Mr. Stanley, 86, has spent his life trying to sell mortgages, real estate, and some big ideas. Years ago, he sent himself to Saudi Arabia to hustle securities, which did not work out. After that, he said he went to Mongolia to see if there was a way for the United States to occupy it. He said he even developed a plan to build a $1 trillion canal through the Caucasus Mountains before realizing it was way too expensive. My dad's a good salesman, said Cynthia Stanley, his oldest daughter who lives in Hawthorne, California, but she added, he's a lot. Mr. Stanley has been married and divorced twice. He made a decent living in San Jose, California for many years, but his broker license was revoked in early 2000s for inappropriate conduct, an incident he said really hurt me emotionally and financially. His daughter said that besides playing his grand piano, he had some time on his hands. About 6 months ago, he became seized by Greenland. Instead of buying Arctic gear for his trip, he ordered a double-breasted suit. In nearly May, he arrived in Nuuk alone and checked into a mid-grade hotel. He began riding around in taxis with a neatly stapled petition that read, "Territorial referendum, sign up, $200,000 tax-free." Greenland is a semi-autonomous territory of Denmark, and most Greenlanders have expressed that they do not want to join the United States. Despite President Trump's offers, his repeated threats have not helped either, and the Greenlanders have made it clear they do not want to be bought. When I first came here, nearly everybody, the old ladies, were yelling at me and swearing at me, Mr. Stanley said. Then 2 policemen knocked on my door and said, "We're here to investigate you." I said, "I'll cooperate fully, anything that you want," he recalled. He said the officers took pictures of his documents, made their report, and left. Greenland's police officials declined to discuss the investigation with the Times, but the Greenland Icelandic News and Radio reported investigators had concluded that Mr. Stanley had not broken any laws. Still, he is being watched closely, according to photos on social media. As he trudges around in the freezing wild of a Greenland spring, that his stack of papers, Mr. Stanley has become a testament to the wackiness of this political movement. An ever-evolving cast of Americans, including some sent by Mr. Trump, has descended on the gigantic Arctic island, hoping to turn it into American soil. Was Mr. Stanley sent by anyone? No, I'm a sole proprietor. Sole means single, he said. No individual, no organization, no politics, no corporation, nothing. The U.S. Embassy in Denmark has said Mr. Stanley is not connected to the government in any way. As for Mr. Trump, Mr. Stanley said he's not a dummy. He's got a couple $billion, beautiful women in his life, tremendous family, right? I do not care for some of his moral qualities, he added. I don't admire him. I admire what he's done. Mr. Stanley calculated that if the United States paid $12 billion for Greenland, that would mean around $200,000 for each of the island's 57,000 residents. Congress has not taken even the first step to do anything like this, but if America did, Mr. Stanley said, it would be good for both sides. As a lifelong broker, Mr. Stanley also calculated he would net $72 million commission, saying I'm morally, ethically, and legally obligated to disclose that. So far, the commission looks like a pipe dream. No one has hired him, and only a handful of Greenlanders have signed on. But he does not mind making the effort, saying it reminds him of his mortgage broker days. I was always out pounding the pavement, knocking on doors, talking to people about their credit and their income, their civil legal problems and their criminal legal problems, drug problems, divorce problems, he said. You have been listening to a reading of articles and features from the May 31st, 2026 issue of the front section of the New York Times. We read from the front section of the New York Times every Sunday at 1 p.m. Your reader has been Aaron. Thank you for listening.
Coming up next in the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, we have a reading of the New York Times opinion page. Following that, at 3 o'clock, the New York Times Arts and Leisure, and at 4 o'clock, a rebroadcast of this morning's Buffalo News. Radio Reading mails out a large print program schedule to our listeners every other month. If you have not received a Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service large print program schedule in the mail, please call us at 716-821-5555. We will make sure that you receive one every other month. A Braille version of the schedule is also available upon request. Our number again is 716-821-5555. The following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or have another print